Somewhere between the edge of being alive and feeling dead.
Alright, so you got yourself an electric vehicle. Doesn't have to be a Tesla, it doesn't matter. This video's for anyone. You're heading home and maybe you don't know much about electric vehicles. You just had a gasoline vehicle or a diesel or something like that. And what happens now, right? You're pulling into your driveway, and does anything change? Should you consider anything? And that's what this video is going to talk about. Alright, so you parked your electric vehicle in the garage, and that's it, right? Just go into the house and live life, and that's it. Wrong. So, of course, Teslas, they have their charging port right here, right? And number one, always be charging. ABC. That's all electric vehicles. You should always be charging if you can, which then comes back to, what is your charging plan? For me, I have tons of videos about this. I ended up getting this Tesla charging station right from day one. Actually, I had it installed before I brought home my electric vehicle, so it was ready to go. This is I have a fuse panel in the garage. I also have one in the house, just the way it was. I had the electrician, yes, I had an electrician do it. I had him add a circuit for my electric vehicle. This is a 40-50 amp circuit. This is a NEMA 1450 plug. Same plug you'll use in Canada if you have a stove. Same type of plug. But if you're going to do this yourself, if you're getting an electrician to do this, make sure you get an industrial grade outlet. Industrial. Because stoves don't get used all the time, but electric vehicle plugs do. So I got an industrial outlet. If you don't do that, it'll work for a few years, but you'll see tons of information online where these plugs melt, create fires, because they're just not rated for the type of use that an electric vehicle puts on it. Anyways, that's all I'll say about that. Anyways, this is my Tesla charger. You can get a NEMA 1450 as your for most EVs, they will support using that. Actually, you can plug into anything with an electric vehicle. You can plug into your regular 110 volt outlet, but you'll need to make sure you have adapter plugs for that. I have other videos talking about that, but make sure you have a way to charge. So what should you do if you don't have a garage, a house, you're in a condo or something like that? You're going to need to figure out where to charge. Maybe you can't always be charging if you live at a condo. Maybe the condo doesn't allow you to charge EVs there. So people in that case, it's not ideal, but you're gonna, like a gas station, you're gonna have to go somewhere to charge on a regular basis, probably to the fast chargers. There's lots of free chargers out there, but in highly densified cities like Vancouver, etc., you may have to pay. There may not be as many free options like there are in smaller cities. But level 2 charging, that's what this is. Level 1 charging is just a regular household 110 volt, 15 amp plug. This is level 2, it's 220 volt, and you can charge faster. Level 3 are the DC fast chargers. That's like Tesla Supercharger. That's like those Petro-Canada, Electrify Canada, all those kind of things. And they are high speed charging, and they usually cost more. Anyways, figure out how you're going to charge. That's the first thing that you should consider. Also, if you can, park your electric vehicle in the garage. If you have a gas vehicle, that can park out there. It's better to park the electrical vehicle in the garage, because why should you always be charging? That's because there's a battery in here. And batteries, and by the way, Adventure Dog is with us. Good girl. Anyway, always be charging, because the battery needs a constant temperature, or a range of steady temperature, because if it's too cold or too hot, it's bad for the life of the battery. So that is one of the main reasons, just one of them, but probably the most important, why you should always be charging. Speaking of that, I forgot to plug in when I got home. Not even following my own advice here. we go. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is heating and cooling with electric vehicles. So with this vehicle, this is a 2020 model Tesla Model 3, and it uses resistive heating. Think of that like a baseboard heater, that kind of thing, with those fins. They heat up. It just takes pure electricity, heats up those fins, blows the air through the vents here. And a lot of electric vehicles did that in the past, but since I think 2021 and onwards, and some, give or take some years, different auto manufacturers would be different years, but they use heat pumps. Much more efficient, but they do take longer to heat up. You'll see videos all over YouTube online showing the difference. So I have a PTC heater, which is basically like a baseboard type heater, and modern EVs from 2021 onwards, pretty much many of them use a heat pump. It's much more efficient, which means you get more range, but it does take longer to heat up. So what does it all mean? So when it's cold out, if you have winter time where you live, which we do here in Canada, I can just use my cell phone from inside the house, inside the grocery store, and I can say heat up the car. And it's going to use that resistive heater or the heat pump, and it's going to heat up the car. But it does take fuel, right? The car isn't running in the sense of a gasoline vehicle where you have to start it up. You can just turn on the heat independently at any point in time. It does take some of the battery energy. So heating and cooling, there's also, just like any other vehicle, they have air conditioners under the hood, and that is used for cooling. So you have heating and cooling, uses battery, and it's pretty quick. Definitely the heating would be much faster in an electric vehicle than your typical gasoline vehicle, because they take time to heat up the engine and therefore heat up the fluid, which then heats up the cabin. Anyway, that's heating and cooling. Let's take a look outside. And of course, tires. Tires wear faster on electric vehicles because electric vehicles are generally heavier, because the battery at the bottom of the electric vehicle, it's heavy, gives good traction, but the side, which means you have great traction in the winter, also great traction in the summer compared to a gasoline vehicle. Tires wear faster, so just note that. But your maintenance on tires and everything can be done anywhere. You don't have to go to a special shop for that. Tire shops can generally deal with this no problem. So that's tires. Suspension. So I have a video about my Tesla Model 3, and there's, I guess, the early models of Model 3 and Model Y have problem with the control arm, which is a suspension item right in here. It's probably dark, you can't see it, but I have a video on it. And because it's heavier, the suspension system does get more wear on it, I would say, compared to a regular gasoline vehicle. So you may end up doing repairs there. I haven't had to do much. I just put some oil so it wouldn't squeak, but have a video on that. But generally, anyone can do work on that. It's just regular suspension. Quick note on the tires. I mentioned they wear faster. When you get a new set of tires to replace your old worn ones, make sure that the tires you get don't just match the size, but that it also matches the weight ratings. Like I said, electric vehicles are generally heavier, therefore they put more stress on the tires. Tires could bulge out more, so you need to make sure it can handle the overall weight range of your car. So there's a whole class of EV rated tires these days. I would just say Nokian is a fantastic tire company. They make the best winter tires as far as I'm concerned. They make great summer tires, all seasons, all weather. Anyways, make sure when you get tires that they're rated for the weight of your vehicle. That's one important note. Another quick comment, on tires and wheels and whatnot. These covers, this is from my Tesla. These are like hubcap type covers. They're designed special so that you get the maximum range out of your battery on the EV. Many auto manufacturers that make EVs, they have these special covers. So while you can pull them off, just realize you'll probably lose some range by doing that because it's designed optimally so that you get the best distance from the battery on your vehicle. So these are called Aero covers because the aerodynamics, they're really efficient. So that's just another thing to consider. All right, let's talk about the frunk, or the front trunk, or whatever you want to call this, the hood. I'll pop this open. And electric vehicles, still for the most part, I think newer ones like the Tesla Cybertruck are different, but I do have a video on this. They still have a 12-volt battery. So the older ones, like this is an older Model 3, 4 years old. Newer models, and again, I think 2021 onward, they also have a 12-volt battery, but they last much longer. This is a regular lead acid battery. In fact, this one is AGM, which means it can handle many charge-discharge cycles more than a regular lead acid battery. Gasoline vehicles also have that availability to get that type of battery. They cost more. Anyways, that's how you boost these cars. So you should know that. You know, you get home, these can die. You know, you leave the door open or the lights stay on or something, this 12-volt battery can die. Now, usually the high voltage battery charges this when it gets low, but there's been scenarios where for whatever reason it doesn't do that, 12-volt battery dies. Now you can't get into the car in many models, and I have a video, or there's many videos online talking about that. I'm not going to duplicate that. Just to mention, 12-volt batteries exist. If you have a newer model, they have, instead of a lead acid battery, they have a lithium ion battery. It's probably 1/2 to 1/4 the size of this. There still will be a positive and negative terminal that you can connect to boost it if for some reason this dies. And under here, I can pull this off, but positive terminals under there, here's the negative. All right, so I've made a video on this. I'm not going to go into detail, just to mention, you brought your car home, what should you consider? Adapters. For example, the Tesla will come with, and I think all non-Teslas come with this type of plug in the car over there in general. This is a J1772 adapter, J1772 to Tesla. So newer cars will all use the Tesla plug. It's also called NACS, but as of this writing, I think most vehicles that are non-Tesla use this type of plug for AC charging. And so you're going to basically want to get as many adapters as possible so that if you're on a road trip or wherever and you need to get a charge and they don't have the type of plug that you have available, that you can grab an adapter and adapt it from whatever your car requires to whatever the plug is there. So that's an AC adapter, and this is a DC adapter. Again, for non-Tesla charging stations, right? This is sort of the AC part, and this is the DC part, and it goes to Tesla. So I can go charge at non-Tesla fast charging stations because I have this adapter. If I didn't have an adapter, hey, they might be available, but if for some reason I need it on a road trip, I can't use it. Always know the areas you're going to travel. Get adapters for what you're going to need to charge at. For example, you may want to be able to charge at an RV site. Find out what kind of adapters you can get for your vehicle. I have videos on that for Tesla and explaining how those RV adapters work. All right, let's talk about one other thing. So no Tesla, none of them, no model comes with spare tire. There's no spare tires in here. There's not even a place for a spare tire, right? Lots of space for groceries and other things. Lots of space down here where I put adapters and plugs and stuff, but no plug or no spare tires. So get yourself a spare tire. Now maybe you will get, that's my car lock sound. Anyway, I got tires up there. Those are my summer tires. So worst case scenario, you go on a road trip. If you have 2 sets of tires, grab one of those, throw it in the trunk, and you've got a spare tire if you get a flat on that road trip. I also have this it's from Modern Spare. This is an official spare tire for Tesla Model 3 for my type of vehicle. It comes with a jack and a tire iron in there. You're going to need a jack and a tire iron to put that tire on if you get a flat. So make sure you cover yourself if you want to do a road trip. Even if you're driving in town, do you really want to have to get a tow? So have this available. Let's say you get a flat and you're in town, just pull over to the side and you can get a friend to drive you home, bring your spare, not a big deal because you're close. On a road trip, bring it with you. All right, not talking about tires this time, but let's just pull this off real quick. There. Let's talk about brakes. This car is 4 years old. Actually, it's more than 4 years old. You can see the rotor is in fantastic condition. The brake pads are, I'm going to say, probably 2/3 still. Because you don't generally use your brakes as much with an electric vehicle. So that's just something to note. You know, you got home, this new car, maybe it's used, but just good to know. Brakes, generally you don't need to do, you don't need to replace them that often. They should be serviced, especially if your location has salt and grime and that kind of thing for winter. They will get kind of corroded and you'll want to be able to kind of pull apart the rotor, the caliper, the pads in there so that you can just clean off any corrosion and they'll last for many, many years. And you can see an example right here. I've been through 4 winters, still doing really good. Windshields. Lots of people need windshield replacement, especially here in northern BC. As you can see, I've kind of delayed doing it here. I've got a nice big crack. Already had this done once in town. Any glass shop that is willing to change yours, I say that because we've had some drama here in Prince George where some of the glass shops didn't want to deal with Tesla because Tesla's a pain to deal with when it comes to parts sometimes. But any glass shop is able to do it. If they're willing to do it, that's another thing. So you don't have to go to Tesla or Ford or whoever made the vehicle to get it done. Generally speaking, anyone can do it. Okay, next we're going to talk about charging, and primarily I'm going to focus on how long you think it's going to take to charge your car, because that's kind of an important thing when you're planning out road trips or charging overnight, so you can be ready with the amount of charge you need, your state of charge, also called SOC, to go to work the next day. So just like many things in life, these are just estimates that your car tells you. You go to a charging station or you're plugging at home and it says it will take this much time to get to 80% or 90% or 100%. And the reason they're estimates is there's just a lot of factors involved. One central theme when it comes to charging electric vehicles is the battery temperature, the high voltage battery. That's the most expensive part of every EV. And lithium batteries, whether the lithium ion or lithium iron phosphate or whatever the chemistry, at least as of the time of this video, they all are sensitive to extreme heat and extreme cold. And so the car takes some energy to regulate that battery temperature. So when you're fast charging, especially when you're fast charging, but even when you're slow charging, the first thing the car is going to try to do is bring the battery temperature into its operating range. And that's usually, I think optimal range is around 25 degrees Celsius. That could be different across different battery types, but generally speaking, somewhere around there. So in cold weather, it's going to take a lot longer, 2, 3, 4 times as long, possibly, depending on what you've done to prepare your car to charge. So there's something called preconditioning the battery, which means you tell the car well before you go to the charging station that you're going to charge. You're going to need to charge, say, in the next hour. And so the car can start warming up the battery. So when you get there in, say, minus 20, minus 30 temperatures, the battery's at its optimal temperature, and therefore your charging speed will be as fast as you can get. And I have videos showing that when I drove from Prince George to McBride in minus 30, I supercharged and I got the maximum charge speed that you can get in the summertime. So charging speed is directly going to be related to a few things: the temperature of your battery in the car, as well as the state of charge. So another important thing is when your car is close to 100%, I'm going to say from about 90% and higher, it charges extremely slow. And this is a safety feature because you could damage the battery if it accepted a high rate of charge at that point. So virtually all EVs take a very long time to charge that last 10%. So if you can plan to not have to go above 90 for your road trips, that's best, because you'll be sitting a lot longer if you need that last bit of percentage. But sometimes on trips you have to do it, so that you'll just have to deal with that delayed time. Fastest charging speeds usually happen at the bottom end of the battery, like 0% up to 50 is usually when you're going to get your best speed results. After 50%, you're going to definitely see it start to taper down and charge more slowly again, because as the battery gets higher charge rate, it will slow down for the safety and longevity of the battery. So in this video example, you see in cold weather I was charging and never got above 40 something kilowatts because it was very cold outside and I did not give enough time for the battery to precondition. I think I did navigate to the supercharger, but only maybe 10 or 15 minutes away from the supercharger, and so you're going to see much slower charging times when you do that, and this video clip shows that. Next, let's talk about range and range estimates and how far you think you can go in your electric vehicle. Always you're only going to get an estimate. Your vehicle is going to say you have this many miles, this many kilometers of range, 200, 300, 400, 500, whatever it is. That's just an estimate. You'll see here on the screen the energy graph. It says I have this many kilometers that I can drive, but the truth is there's many factors that are going to affect what your actual range is. You're going to see in these videos I drive through all kinds of terrain in British Columbia. Actually, I've driven across Canada to Manitoba, and things like how steep the inclines are, how steep the declines are, because when you go downhill for long distances you gain a lot of energy back. In some of the drives I've done, you'll see where it shows you don't have enough energy to make it to your destination. It shows that little red warning at the top of the navigator on my Tesla. Every EV is going to be different, but I was driving through the ice fields from Banff up to Jasper, and it had calculated that my range was going to be not enough because of the speed that I was driving leading up to my last charge station, which was in Canmore. And if I was going to drive 120 kilometers per hour, because the speed limit there is 110, if I was going to drive that speed up to Jasper, then it was telling me I wouldn't make it. But of course I knew I wasn't going to drive that speed, but it didn't know that. So anyway, I drove slower and I made it just fine. I think 20% buffer, 15% buffer arriving in Jasper, driving through those mountains. So range it's going to be affected by temperature. I think temperature is probably the biggest, between temperature and how fast you go. So you can control your speed. So that's the variable that you should control. You should play it safe and drive a little slower until you see what your average watt hours per kilometer are, and know that you're going to have enough state of charge to arrive at your destination. Also, snow conditions, if it's very slushy and you're kind of pushing through deep slushy snow, that's going to take a lot of range. If it's very windy, that's also going to take range. So you definitely want to have backup plans. If there's no charging stations between your source and destination, then you're going to have to try to drive a lot slower and be cautious. Maybe use your heating, in-cabin heating, a little bit less. Use your heated seats or whatever you can do. But there's a lot of different tactics there. But just know that these factors are going to affect your range, like the wind, the slipperiness on the road, ice and snow and slush especially, temperature, all those things. And another important thing is if you do punch in that you're going to charge coming up to a destination, like for me, I was going from Canmore, Alberta to Jasper, Alberta, and I told the navigation so that it would warm up the battery when I arrive. But if you're cutting it very close, it takes up to 5% of your charge, of your state of charge, to warm up the battery as you're approaching your destination. If you need that 5%, there's a trade-off here, and that means maybe you don't tell the car you're navigating to a charging station and you get a little bit of extra charge back because maybe you need that 5% just to get there. but then it means your battery will be maybe a little bit colder and you won't charge as fast. So those are some things to think about as you consider range. It's not 100% accurate, and you will get to know what your car can do in different conditions just by driving. Another thing to think about is the size of your tires. I have 18-inch tires with those Aero covers for wintertime, but I have 19-inch sport tires without Aero covers for summertime. But I need that extra range in the winter because when it's cold, you lose a bunch of range due to that coldness, because energy needs to keep the battery at a constant temperature so it doesn't get damaged, and so that you can continue to use that energy. If the battery gets too cold, you'll see, at least on Tesla's, a little blue section in the battery diagram showing that part of the battery is cold and you can't use that energy. So just note all of those things. It's important to know what affects range and what you can do to affect it, and what external factors that you cannot control affect it. So you can look at a forecast, you can understand the terrain you're driving through. Here's an important example. I was coming through the ice fields again from Canmore to Jasper, and for 5 or 6 kilometers as I was going down a very long stretch of mountain, I actually ended up gaining more state of charge than I had started with. So let's say, for example, I was driving down the mountain and I was at 51% state of charge. After 6 kilometers, I was like at 53% state of charge, because getting that regeneration energy back into the battery going down made such a big difference over that distance. But again, the opposites, when you're going the opposite direction, you're climbing a large incline, you're going to lose some energy. So usually the calculations take that kind of thing into effect when it does the calculation, but just know that and be prepared for that. So one more quick note on range. I learned this on my trip going to the Pas, Manitoba, and that is the trip calculator doesn't know about everything. So on that trip, I did hit some gravel for quite a long distance, I think 200 kilometers or so, and on gravel you have terrible traction. So that really impacted my range adjustment, like 10 to 15%, maybe more. So if you have a tight amount of range left, like 5% buffer, 10% buffer, that can get gobbled up just by gravel roads. Add a little bit of wind, add a little bit of mud, add a little bit of cold, and you could be in trouble. So note that if you're going on logging roads or gravel roads, things like that, in rural areas, you're going to lose more range, and you may need to slow down. You want to slow down well ahead of time so you can build up some extra range to get you through that, and just so you have extra to know what you're going to deal with. All right, let's talk about repairs, maintenance. Some things you'll be able to do yourself. Depending on your skill level, you can maybe swap out your own tires. Maybe you can change the 12-volt battery. In this video, I just lubricated the control arms, because control arms are a known issue for older Tesla Model 3s. Anyways, you need to know how to get repairs done. Another problem I had was my hood. Someone backed into the hood and scratched it, and I need to get some body work done. So at some point you're going to need to know, okay, how do I get work done on my car? Tesla, you only really can get work done at service centers, although there are some third parties that are starting to emerge, but they're not all certified, and that can be a problem dealing with insurance. So you need to know your insurance issues. So like repairs, DIY, local service, remote service, insurance, those things are kind of all tied together. And you should find out how much does insurance cost, because costs have been going up for electric vehicles over those 4 years that I've owned mine, for various different reasons. But do the research, find out what it's going to cost. Maybe it's prohibitive for you to get into it right now, or maybe you should get a different EV that's not so high cost. Getting service done can be a hassle. Like if you need body work or something like that, and there's no shops that are certified, you're going to have to figure out and be creative. What are you going to do? You're going to get your car towed like 8 hours away just to get your windshield replaced, or get some body work done, or some simple maintenance. that might have to happen. That has happened to many people across Canada. So find out, usually you don't have to do much maintenance, but things happen that are outside of your control sometimes. You get a flat tire when you're driving the highway, you lose control, other things get damaged, whatever. So get in the know-how, find out, ask the company that you're buying the vehicle from how does service work, and maybe get it in writing. I was told when I bought my Tesla in 2020, yeah, local service comes and deals with problems. And if there's a big problem where you can't drive, they'll tow the car. They'll pay for it. Well, that's kind of true and kind of not. Within a short amount of time, a few months, Tesla stopped sending service technicians up to where I live. So many people in our Facebook groups complained about something simple like the PTC heater, the cabin heater, failed, and Tesla wouldn't tow the car. They had to drive down to Vancouver or Edmonton, 8 hours away, and with no heating, because Tesla deemed it as drivable. Even though if it's minus 20 out, how drivable is it with no cabin heat, right? Anyways, things like that. Get it in writing, find out what the real service situation is for you, find out what you can do, and it'll save you some hassle. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully some of this basic information is helpful to you. I know I went a little bit into detail, but on some of these topics I have entire videos really digging into the details of the topic, and this is just sort of a high-level summary, things to think about, things that have affected me over those 4 years, and hopefully it helps you to make the right decision for what vehicle you're going to buy, how your driving experience will go, how service will go, insurance costs, all that kind of thing. So anyways, have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.